Hi, Julie. Oh, you're muted.
And you're not on video.
Oh, I will be in a sec. All right. Yay! Did you start reading it?
Yes.
What do
I
you
like
think
it.
so far?
Yeah, I like it. It is it's like a different language from what I've done for years, which I may have mentioned to you, Landmark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, many years I've been engaged with somehow with Landmark, which was previously Est.
Oh,
You heard of that?
I have. I didn't realize it was different.
Well, it's gone through various incarnations, but it's like a transformative language that addresses um, your listening. That's the language they use. That
Mm.
we all have a listening through which we perceive the world and our relationships, our work, everything. And it filters out what doesn't comport with what we grew up with and what makes us feel safe and secure and right and all that. So, this is a different language. She uses mindset, very, you know, um, acceptable word. And I like the different mindsets that she puts forth.
Yeah.
It's really great to imagine myself doing that naturally.
Awesome. Actually, let me get my book. One second. The only thing I haven't done yet is started to um like I went through it once and I wanted to go back and mark it up. I haven't done that yet. Maria's going to be a few minutes late. Yep. Okay. Yeah, what I also like about if you look in the back, let's see, where is it? For the core competencies,
Yes.
I love how like if you look at any other books, nobody has like coaching books, they don't have the core competencies in the back of their books. Like she's very specific that these things are going to help you not only develop your coaching skills and get rid of things that are hindering us from like that we've learned since, childhood or at jobs or whatever, but they are going to specifically help you with your core competencies. Like I love that she, connects everything to it. And I don't know if I posted that yet, but I also posted kind of a little cheat sheety thing in the last course, but let me see if I did that here. And if not, I will do that right away. Let's see. Let's try this again. It never fails that I have to reset my password.
Oh,
I don't understand. I have too many passwords. That's my problem. Mm, mm, mm. To reset it again. Seriously. Oh, I see what it's doing. That is ridiculous. I don't understand. Why won't it let me log in?
what you looking for?
I'm trying to log in to UpCoach, but I had it open, but it closed it, and now it's not letting me back in. I tell you. Let's see if I do it this. There we go. All right, that was weird. Okay, there we go.
Did you get it?
All right, yep. So,
Good.
um, yeah, so if you look underneath the, I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, excuse me. So in the forum part, underneath where I posted the book,
Yeah.
there's the reading schedule.
Wait a minute. Where did you post the book? Because I was just looking for that.
Oh, here under, so if you go in, when you log in to the program here
Yeah,
and you see this, you just scroll down past the recordings
which I did.
to the forum. And then I just do see all posts so that they all show up here.
Okay, so you click on the forum.
And then see all posts. And then here's the book. And here's the recommended reading schedule for it.
Okay.
Oh, and I didn't post that. So then I will post the. Okay, that's the reading schedule. And let me go to a different screen real quick. Back to program. All right, so this is the um 83 mindset um shifts, kind of like a cheat sheet.
Okay.
So I'm going to just put that link in there because it's 8 pages. I'll also share my screen, but I want to put the link. Just going to put this underneath the course schedule. Here comes Maria. Got me drinking now. Hello.
Hi, Maria. I think I'm going to go get
Muted.
my
Hi,
computer
good afternoon.
glass.
Go on. How are you?
All right. I had an appointment from 11 o'clock and just got home now. It was Delilah's neurologist. And somebody messed up on her end. She said somebody scheduled 2 people at once. And she was pissed, but I was ready to cancel it. And then she came right out. How are you? Did you do anything for the long weekend?
Just drove back to North Carolina.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I
Well, I
got
was.
I got
Go
the
ahead.
by the way.
You got the book?
Yeah, I got the book and I'm reading it so far. So far, so good. I mean, I've only read one of the. I like it.
Good. I was just showing, so I just posted, I'll share my screen. Where is it? So I don't know if you saw that I posted a reading schedule. You don't have to follow it, but it'll help you to get it done in time. So that's the recommended. No, this is the wrong. No, is that the right one? No, this is not the right one. Oh, wait, let's go back to announcements. Yeah. So this has 2 comments. The first one is the reading schedule. And then the second one is this visual that I'm
Okay.
going to go over.
Okay.
All right. So here's this visual that I was talking about. If you click that link, it'll bring you right here. And it's funny, it talks about the Empire Strikes Back and Yoda. But so it takes each mindset shifts. So this one is like the parents and caregivers, and the old mindset, do what I tell you to do. The new mindset, provide psychological safety so the thinker can figure out their own next move. Old mindset, only children need boundaries. New mindset, adults need boundaries too. Anyway, it goes through all of them. And it's taken from the audio book, but so it doesn't give you the pages in the regular book, but I don't know how close they are or not to what's in the real book. Like, you might have to check that. But And then it says the mindset shifts from school. So follow the rules, honor the thinker's needs. More is more, less is more. Be quiet and diligent. Say what you see, hear, and sense. Um, if it's not measurable, it's not to be trusted. Um, Felt sense is wisdom. Teachers hold the truth. Be curious about multiple truths. Fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. So
The
these are
pages are accurate actually on there.
okay, good. So they're the same. And then it goes into the peers. Um, do what it takes to fit in, be yourself. Here's what I would do, what's going to work for you, given your personality and context. Silence is awkward, silence is golden. Um, don't air your dirty laundry in public. Ask about mental health. We avoid discussions of difference. We acknowledge our own and others' unique privilege and restrictions. And then from work, be the fixer, be the resourcer. Work as quickly as you can, get to what matters most, then slow down to explore. Be more efficient by multitasking, be more efficient by single tasking. I grew up in a multitasking world. They
Mhm.
gave us, I mean, we did 10 hats, 10 jobs, and you had to be, if they didn't see you juggling 15 things at one time, forget it. Like that you were considered not productive. I love single tasking now. Not that I do it all the time because I still have that. I was trained in it for, over 25 years, but I think single tasking is so much better and so much more efficient, and it actually mental health wise benefits us versus the multitasking. I am responsible for the outcome instead of I'm responsible for the coaching process. The thinker is responsible for the outcome and their future. So that's what we have to kind of really focus in on when we're coaches, that we don't have anything to do with the outcome. The client does. We just take them through the coaching process. As long as we're doing that, we're doing our job. Um, Business people are hard-nosed and harsh. Boundaries around time, fees, and so forth are professional. So being able to have our own boundaries and what we decide to do as business people. Managers, I like the managers one. You work for me, we work together.
Mhm.
Come with solutions, not questions. Be okay with not knowing. Think like me. Challenge my assumptions. Feedback is painful. Objective feedback is useful. People are not resourceful. People can figure it out with support. I need to produce and send written notes. Thinkers are adults and can capture their learning in words that are true to them. And that's a little bit of a shift too, because when I first started coaching, I always provided my clients with notes, always. Now I keep my own notes, but and if the client wants notes, that's fine. But I always thought it was like required that I would produce the notes and send them to the client. But really, if you think about it, like when I'm getting coached, I write my own notes because it's in my language and what I want to take, what I think is important versus the coach giving to me. Now the coach might give me, if I'm learning a process
Like
or
good luck,
something, my
honey.
coach might give me the process, like written down process. Like they might say, oh, here's like steps 1 through 5, but they're not giving me notes. I take my own notes. So that's a shift, I think, um, in
So,
coaching, because in the beginning, go ahead.
well, I don't want to interrupt you if you want to complete that.
Nope. Go ahead.
I was just thinking about the current coaching I'm doing for a church and the uh, sort of go-between body between the congregation and the pastor. They're called the Pastoral Relations Committee, or the PRC. They came to me because they have real struggles with the way the pastor does his job. And I won't go into it too deeply, except to say that the last meeting that we had, um, I did a summary of the meeting and sent it out to them. And I realize that basically it's that I just thought I could do better than they could. You know, that there was so many of them, actually just three, but to synthesize everything that we had talked about and put it in order. I really thought I should do, and maybe I shouldn't have.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is like the shoulds.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It was a very professional summary, and I think they appreciated it because if you could have seen the look on their faces when I said, you know, if you like, I'll send you a summary, and they were like, yeah, please. So
I think I think in that kind of situation that at the beginning I would help, like maybe for the next any kind of the next groups that you do, is help them choose who's gonna, keep track of things. And it might be something that you might say something like, it's always beneficial if there's a summary sent out after the meetings. Who do you think would be the best person to, keep track of the important information to send out, and let them assign somebody in their group.
yeah, that's an idea. And I also had the thought that we could uh, I could elicit from them a summary right there.
Yeah.
You know, like what have we talked about? You know, let's do a summary together. I'll type it up, I'll send it out, but you're going to generate it.
Yeah, you can do that too. Um, but I think the better, I mean, this is just my opinion. This isn't, you do what you think feels best. But to me, the better option would be to let them, they're the group that works together, right? Like they have their own unit. And personally, I would want them to frame it what's best going to work for them. And I could add to it. So if you wanted to say, yeah, let's summarize what's been said and what you're going to send out. And then you could add to it if they forget something, or if there's something that you feel like you could say, well, we also talked about this. Is that something that you want to add to the summary or something? And just, let them kind of come up with their own process, since they are the unit, really.
Yeah, that's good.
Just a thought.
Appreciate that.
So mindsets from coach training. This one is really uh important, or it really impacted me because I've I've been coaching for a different organization for 15 years that you've both been in, and there were things as we were going on that I knew instinctively could be better, and that things were changing, but the atmosphere wasn't changing, like the thought processes weren't changing with how coaching was changing. And so that's one of the things that I've always said, is that coaching changes all the time. Like we have to be on top of it. It's not like, I don't feel it's enough to say, every 5 years I need to go and update my skills, right? Even if it's just a little workshop that you take, or a book that you read, or something, right? That helps us to grow in our coaching. And this book is one of those things, like if you and you guys are reading it, and you guys are, always doing things to move forward, but there's a lot of coaches that don't. And so even if they took this book, they would have a huge difference in opinion and mindset, and how to apply different things. Um, and so when I read coach training one, I was like, oh my gosh, like I knew some of these things instinctively. So the work happens when we're together. The work happens when we're apart, right? We do some work in the coaching sessions, but the real work, the real stuff happens outside the sessions, right? They can say they're going to do things, they can come up with things, but it's not until they implement, until they really go and do it, right? That's when the change really happens or the transformation happens. Change happens, um, change happens are the session. Get the shift in the room by doing it now. So that should be in the session. So, it's again, when they take action, that's when the shifts happen. We must understand today's reality. Today's reality is only useful if it is new thinking. So sometimes the current reality is old thinking. So do we really need to understand the old thinking? And that's why when you look at the model that we've developed for this course, that we talk about, and as we go through and you learn the different pieces of it, we talk about not needing that past information. We don't need to ask things like, well, what have you tried before? That used to be a go-to question, right? Now I'm not saying that you would never use that, but we don't need that up front. We also don't need a whole lot of context. We don't need the story. We just need very specific things. Really, the client needs to hone in on very specific things to move forward. But we don't want them to explain the whole story. What's necessary for them to be able to get to what they want to in today's call, in today's change that they're trying to make, or today's transformation. And this right here, what have you tried already? When you think about the things that you've tried already, what have you learned? So that's how we want to use that as context. So what have you tried so far that you can now apply to the current situation? So it's not just to tell the story or just to kind of regurgitate information. It's to say, okay, what about those things, or what about what you've tried before that you can now apply to moving forward to this situation. Face-to-face is best, virtual is just as powerful. Well, we know that now. Rapport is everything. Match for rapport, mismatch for change. And that one, you'd have to read that chapter to really understand that. But tell me more. What meaning do you make of that? So tell me more, first of all, is directional. And so we don't want to say that. But again, that used to be a fallback, right? Got trained on that. Say, tell me more, or let's do this. We don't want to use let's anymore. We don't want to say, tell me more. That's directive. We want to ask them what meaning does that have for you? I'm curious. Get them to be curious. And I just did an evaluation for one coach, and she said, I'm curious. I think it was 13 times throughout the conversation, because that's how she was trained. But I'm curious, tell me such and such is directive, and it's not helping the client to explore, to come up with their own answers. Use the established formula, trust your intuition. We give you a framework. You take that framework and you use it in whatever way, or not even, that is best for your client in that particular session, right? It's just a framework. It's just something for you to, that gives you some structure if you need it. But in that moment, you don't need to follow that structure. It's whatever is going to work best for the client, as long as it's within your competencies and ethics. I must hold the thinker accountable to progress. I support the thinker to find ways to hold themselves accountable. And of course, there are accountability coaches out there, but in particular, specifically, those people are accountability coaches. That's what they do, right? They're just helping clients to be accountable. And it's not typically really what coaching is. But in our normal day-to-day coaching, we are not going to be their accountability partners, because it doesn't work. It creates a power dynamic. And we don't want to have a power dynamic in our relationships with coaches, as coaches, with our clients. We want them to have the power over themselves and not have any kind of elevated power or something that they look to us as any kind of elevated experience or knowledge or anything. That's not it, right? We're equals. And so accountability puts a dynamic in there that we don't want. Parrot back what the thinker has told you. What we want to do is highlight the essence and notice the emotions. So we're not gonna do this laundry list of, okay, I heard you say A, B, C, D, E, F, G. No, what I heard you say was you really liked yada yada, and and this is what I got the sense that you were, specifically looking at. How does that feel to you? Or how did that feel in that moment, depending on, the situation. We're just going to summarize and not give that laundry list anymore. And then the coaching experience, again, I'm not going to read through all these, but we sit and talk, versus we use all the thinker senses to access new learning. Start from the end of the last session. They are now a different person than they were on the last session, hopefully. Work on the presenting problem. The presenting problem is rarely the problem. So whatever they bring up, we're going to ask those questions to get underneath to find out what the real problem is. Coach the individual versus coach the system. Building trust takes time. We're going to cut to the chase. Going to get very specific. There are lists of powerful questions. There are, but powerful questions lose their potency in other coaching conversations. So you might have a really powerful question that you use in, with client A, that's not going to have the same impact with client B. So having that list of questions, although we have a framework that gives you examples, the examples is to give you the essence and not questions that you're specifically going to ask. When the session is over, it's over. Closing the session fully allows for continued new thinking afterwards. So there's always those next steps that are going to help the client move forward. And then building psychometric tests, 360-degree feedback, or personality assessments into the start of a coaching program. Assessments set up a parent-child rather than an adult-adult relationship. Now that depends on the assessments as well. Like there's things like strength finders and things like those type of assessments. There's no power imbalance there, right? But sometimes when you're looking at things like 360-degree feedback, that can create some power dynamics. Personality assessments, if you're giving that feedback, if you're the one determining the assessment piece, that can create a parent-child dynamic versus an adult-adult relationship. So thinking through what kind of assessments you use in your coaching and how the results get presented. Like for instance, I use the emotional intelligence assessment in my coaching. And we're going to use it as well. You're going to take that, in fact, for or after the next class, but you're going to get the invitation before the next class. And that does give you a report that tells you, here's where you're strong, here's where you need to work on, but it's how you approach it. And so when I approach people that I do just emotional intelligence coaching with, I will say on the debrief session, we have a debrief session, I will just go through the report with them. I don't emphasize anything or de-emphasize anything. I just go through the report and say, here's what the results say. And then I say to them, I put the emphasis back on them. And what they want to accomplish. So what do you think are the most important areas here for you? What are the ones that you want to focus? What are the areas you want to focus on? Once they tell me that, okay, great. So you picked these 3 areas. Which one do you want to work on first? Why is it important that you want to work on that one first? So again, we just put it back to them. So even in assessments that, tons of people use assessments, we want to make sure that we're not just kind of going with the flow with it. We want to make sure that we're putting it back to the client and making them choose what's most important, which ones they want to work on, and not just what the assessment says. So that's something to think about too if you use assessments. Coaching sessions are a set length. It's okay to finish early. So that's it. When I read that, I was very surprised because people are paying you for your time. But really what they're paying you for is the outcomes. And so if you can get to an outcome in 20 minutes versus 30 minutes, why would you just hang around for 10 minutes? It's kind of like wasting everybody's time, right? So once you're able to get powerful results for clients, or the clients, you facilitate the powerful results, I should say, for clients, then they're not going to be upset if you finish early, if they've gotten what they've wanted out of the session. It wouldn't make sense, right? They don't want to just hang around. Yeah, I mean, you do follow it up with, well, we've accomplished what you wanted on today. Is there anything else that you want to cover? I mean, you do say that we have 10 minutes left or whatever. But if they say no, then it's okay. I'll see you next time. So it's okay to end that session early. Keep calm and carry on. Take recovery time before you need it. So that means to be prepared, which we're going to talk about being prepared emotionally. And then even in the sessions, if you need a minute, you take that minute. And we give lots of space for the clients as well. So in the space that we give them, we're also giving ourselves recovery time. Pride comes before a fall. Account for the whole self and enable thinkers to account for their whole self. Again, you'll have to read that one to kind of understand it a little bit more. Anyway, this is a very cool chart. I love it. I printed it out.
Cheryl, can I ask a question about the last section? Actually, I have two questions,
Yep.
like some clarification.
Mm-hmm.
One is the work on the presenting problem versus the presenting problem is rarely the problem. I'm just thinking about that alongside let the client lead.
Yep.
And I have encountered uh, with individuals, one I'm thinking of right now, um, who I believe is like got like a big blind spot about how things are going in his work. This is the church, I mean, he is sort of wired to talk about how great things are. And I sort of run into a, a little bit of a stumbling block when I know that the complaints about his performance are, significant. And, I don't want to say necessarily, well, the PRC is, they've got other ideas about how things are going. Just sort of, I'm feeling like a little conflicted about, where are the boundaries for what the PRC tells me and what I can, reveal to him.
Yeah, so that's tough. Because typically in a coaching relationship, we don't have that information, right? Because we're just working with the client. We're not really getting information from um superiors or managers or what have you. Um, so the best, so that's the first issue I see. And I think that a good way to handle that would be to talk to the PRC, is it?
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, and we have had face-to-face meeting, all of us together, and so he's not unaware. He did not seek me out for coaching. The
mm,
church sought me out for coaching. And I'm just sort of, seeing if I could answer my own question here. Like, when he talks about all the good stuff happening, um, would I be able to say to him, let's look back and at the meeting that we all had together, and he expressed appreciation for everything people said. I think he's very smooth in his presentation. Like, he didn't indicate any vulnerability or being surprised or offended. Um, that I could ask him, what, I'm not sure this whole, it feels a little bit triangular, for me
Well,
to say, this, and this, or, can you think of something in your partnership with the PRC that you would like to work on, or that's
well,
sort of,
if he's saying that everything's good and you're seeing that that was things that were actually brought up in that meeting as needing improvement, you could reference the meeting. You could say, how does your thoughts on that? But you have to do it in question format.
yeah,
So how do your thoughts on that align with what was discussed in the meeting? And to see if he sees there's a contrast there, right? There's a
okay,
separation.
yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So it's just about helping him to connect with what he's saying or his impression to what their impression is without, it's not really your job to bring up what they said, but you can definitely have him try to connect to it.
Right, right. And it's not up there in front of me now, so I can't think of all the other
Oh,
questions.
here, wait.
I think it had to do with when a session is over, it's over versus closing the session fully allows for continued new thinking afterwards. Like, oh, and with the it's okay to finish early. I'm not I'm not totally on board with it seems like those two might contrast a little bit, especially our training in being able to be silent or, allow for something else to be revealed after it looks like the presenting issue has been solved.
Yeah. So, I mean, this would be after that. So after you've given those opportunities for continuing, thought processes or awarenesses to be generated, then it would be what she's focusing in on here is like, and I've said this a zillion times in training, don't ever end early and don't ever end late. I mean, I've taught that the whole time that I've been teaching for 15 years because that's how I was trained and that's what I was told how to train. Um, but there's plenty of times when I've been on a call and I've exhausted every which way to try to see what else we could do, and there's nothing else there. So basically, this is, what she's saying is don't look at it as like, okay, oh, it's, 1:49 and we're not supposed to get done till 2, so let me try to fill this 11 minutes up. That's basically what the focus is. It's more like, okay, I've asked, we've resolved this. you ask a couple follow-up questions about anything that anything else that might come up or might be connected or what have you. And then you say, okay, so, and this is part of what you're gonna learn is how to actually partner with the client to close the session. A little bit different than what you've been taught before. And then part of that closing, if it's gonna be early, is with the client. The client chooses that really. You know, and there's some questions you can ask, what have you, again, which we're gonna go over, but like, what have you learned about yourself today? What have you learned about this situation? What progress do you feel you've made? These are things that you're going to incorporate into the coaching session. And so if you've done all that and the situation has been resolved as far as the client's concerned, like they feel it's been resolved, there's no reason to stay on the line for another 10 minutes or 11 minutes. It's just gonna, no, it's just really a waste of time for everybody. But you know, again, it's after you've exhausted and you don't feel like there's anything else to be presented. If you do have a feeling like nagging feeling that there's still something there, then you just ask the question, whatever it is that you're feeling. So consider that. But each client's different, so it's not going to be the same experience.
Mhm.
Some clients are going to want to that minute, and that's okay. You'll do your best to do that. But she's basically giving you permission by saying this. She's saying you have permission. If you and the client agree that the session's over, you don't have to sit there and fill up that time.
Right, and it costs the same.
Right.
I mean, I had one coaching session with someone in which I was the client, and this was some time ago, and something shifted for me in the conversation, and I basically thought, I'm not getting anything out of this. And I ended the session,
Yeah.
and she didn't charge me the whole amount. I
Oh,
mean,
really?
she could have.
Yeah. I
I mean,
wouldn't
I
change
wasn't
mine.
cutting it short to save money. You know?
Yeah. No, I mean, I kind of wouldn't even go in that direction. I wouldn't even think of not charging. Like you've already paid, we're done with the payment piece. Like now we're just into the coaching piece. That's just me. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I guess the only time that would come into play is like, I don't know, if somebody signed up for like 6 months and we were done in 3 months, I might say, oh, we're not really coming up with anything for the next 3 months. Maybe I would think about that, but to me, there's always something. So I don't know.
right, right.
That I guess that's individual
Is there a
preference.
widely agreed upon time for coaching sessions for individuals?
No, it really depends on what you're coaching around. So, there's like usually like life coaching can usually be done, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. Um, Wellness type coaching is typically 30 minutes. Um, Business coaching, 45 minutes to an hour, depending on what kind of, business coaching you're doing. Um, Relationship coaching might be 40, 45 minutes. It, really depends on what kind of work you're doing in the sessions. Um, like, like the wellness ones are typically more action based. And so you can come up with, an action plan in that 30 minutes. Where
Hmm.
life ones might be more exploring thoughts, feelings, you know, trying to make those transformative thoughts or connections. And so that takes a little bit longer in the session. So it really depends on what kind of coaching you're like in the sessions you're doing
I
and the
see.
outcomes. Yeah. And the outcomes that your clients want. That's the really big thing.
And it seems like if there's a group like this group, the PRC, like, when I ask for more with them, and I'm usually there with them for an hour and they could keep going and going because I don't know why.
Well, when you get a
Usually
group of,
church people are like, it's been an hour, I'm out of here.
yeah,
But on the other hand, it's not just church business. I mean, they're really opening up and they're being heard in a way they're not used to. And I think that's what
yeah.
kind of keeps them engaged.
Well, and that's the thing about coaching, right? Is that people get to discuss things and get heard in a way that they don't in other
That's
areas of their
right.
life.
That's
Yeah.
right.
How about you, Maria? Anything coming up for you as we're talking through this stuff?
Mostly muted because I don't know what they're doing back there. Cutting grass, trees. They're like mowing everything down there. Yeah, so I had similar like Julie when you said, we didn't have to, that it's okay. I always kind of feel guilty because I'm like, oh, they're paying for like 45 minutes of a session, right? But it's true, there are times where I speak to a client and we're done in half an hour. And so then I'm like, okay, kind of in the limbo as to what should we talk about and trying to fill in like that time. But you explained it well that it's okay to just, I guess, say, we're done. Are you okay with, ending the session? It's something that I got to work on. I mean, with mine, it's sometimes I have the same issue where it'll run off to like an hour, and I'm like, oh shoot, we just went over 15 more minutes that we weren't supposed to go over, because then they're talking because it's a lot to unravel for them to get to where they need to. And then that's also my other struggle. So, for instance, I have a client now that I started, and she has her baby in the NICU. Baby's been in the NICU for the past month, so it's a toll for her mentally. Which I actually, she is seeing a therapist as well. And I was there for an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah,
And I don't want to be rude too and put a timer so then that way I have, like I can keep track as well. But then how do I avoid not even just the lower end, but like how do I avoid like going over as well, like trying to keep the
yeah.
session into that time frame.
I kind of remember that was a problem for you before.
Yes.
Because I remember, I think it was one time, one person you were like having these hour-and-a-half sessions with.
Yes, and I kind of got great at like just keeping with like the 45-minute time span. But then this one client again, and I find myself doing the same thing all over, and I'm like, oh, and
Yeah,
she's obviously I'm not here talking and blabbing, right? Like I'm not just trying to fill in that, she's just talking and talking, and I feel bad like interrupting, and I'm like, okay, well, and sometimes she doesn't let me ask certain questions, like she'll just go on and she'll talk, and I just,
yeah. So it's tough, right, with talkers. And so we do have to create some boundaries, and actually we can talk about that when we're going to look at the model again now that I have the right one up. Uh and we're gonna direct things like this. Like when you start a session, you're gonna say something like, or you can say something like, okay, so we have because the example, I'm gonna show you an example one that we're gonna listen to. So what do you want to focus on in the next 29 minutes that we have available to us? Or in the next 40 minutes that we have together, what would you like to talk about? So you're going to set that tone right at the beginning on the time.
I like that.
And
Yeah.
then you're going to learn how to rein clients in when they're just, again, kind of what I mentioned last week, and I think I mentioned to Julie before you got on, was that we want to cut out the storytelling, right? We need to get clients to understand that we don't need the story. We just need, well, we don't need anything, but we need what we try to do is get the client needs context for themselves. They need specifics for themselves. And the context gives us a way to ask powerful questions. So we have to kind of train our clients to understand that if what they're telling us is not relevant to what they need to get out of the session, then we're going to break in, right?
That's what I wanted to ask too, because I'm asking a question. It starts with the answer that I need, and then it turns into something else that's kind of veering off from what we need to talk about. And so then I feel bad, like cutting and interrupting her, right? Because I feel like she's on a
Yeah.
thought process, but
Yep. Yeah, and that's so we don't need all that. And so yeah, you're going to learn how to do that. And in fact, one of our core competencies says that we don't talk over the client unless there's a coaching purpose. Well,
okay.
the coaching purpose is to stay on track and to get done in the time frame that we have, to move the client forward. So if they're, again, storytelling, then we need to rein them in from that. So yeah, so that'll be one of the things that we work on. But I want to show you the model, and this might give you just a little bit better idea of what we're talking about as far as the kind of the mind shift or the shifts that we need to make for coaching. So this was the updated one that I was talking about, and it's I'm going to post it separately in the up coach so you have it by itself. But you can see here where we took out, we took out the part of confidentiality, because this is something that you explain in your consult. And then in a session, something may not be confidential. So for us to say that at the beginning just kind of misleads the client. So we're kind of thanking them for being here. How are they feeling? And asking either, are they ready for the session, or is there anything they need to clear before we get started? This is something that takes 2 to 3 minutes. We're not taking a whole lot of time here. We do want to remind them that this is just my words. You might do something different, but our coaching session takes place in a judgment-free zone. I like that. It sets the tone, lets the clients know I'm not going to be judgmental. They can share anything that they want. And then I do let them know that if I, take some notes, I'm happy to share it with them at the end if they would like. Now, is that okay with you? Asking their permission to take notes. Of course, they're going to say yes, but it's just a courtesy. Now, I personally, again, don't take notes like kind of like I used to before. So I do bullet points and, business coaching. If it's a process, well, I've already got the process written down. I might copy and paste it to them. So it's a little bit different on how you're going to do things in your coaching. But like for the recovery side, when there is no consulting really, I'm asking them at the end of the session what their biggest takeaways were, what are their action plans. I'm putting it back on them so that they're taking those notes. Now, of course, I have bullet points and I put those in my files, but it's not something I'm sharing with the clients typically. So you have to kind of customize this to you. Now, reviewing goals and progress. Again, this is something very quick. The reason why we check in is to see if something got in the way and they weren't able to accomplish it. That's really the reason. And then we're going to help them remove that obstacle if something came up. But again, we don't want to spend a whole lot of time in this, and some coaches don't do it at all. So it's, again, up to you, and kind of, if you're looking at a coaching plan with somebody, so you developed like their goals over 3 months of coaching. And so they're kind of systematically going through these goals, then it might make sense. Like they have to accomplish this goal before they can get to the next goal. It might make sense to say, okay, did you accomplish what you set out to do last week? What got in the way if it didn't? And then that celebration piece, if they did, is just to get them used to celebrating success, because a lot of people are not used to it. Like when they accomplish things, they just go, okay, and they just move on. Where we want them to maybe start getting into a habit of noticing their own accomplishments, because that can help with mindset and motivation as well. But where it really starts is the structuring the agreement. So what would you like to focus on in today's session? What would be most helpful to explore together? What's important for us to work on in today's conversation? What would you like to think about today? you can add the piece here on the time frame. What would you like to focus in on today in the next 30 minutes that we have together? What would be most helpful to explore in the 40 minutes that we have together today? What's important for us to work on in our 30-minute session today? Something like that, right? You're putting in that time frame. And so and that's your topic, right? And then you're going to go to what they would like to achieve, and then how it's going to be measured. So what specifically would you like to walk away with at the end of the session? Once they give you that, how will you know we've achieved that is the measurement. You always have to ask those 3 questions: topic, outcome, and measurement. So there's actually 3 pieces to the coaching agreement. There's other ways to ask that. Now that we've explored whatever those topics were, what specifically would you like to walk away with at the end of the session? And how will you know this session's been successful? What will make you feel like this time has been well spent, depending on it? This really depends on the topic and the outcome that they're bringing up. And then you want to reflect back that coaching agreement. So what I hear you saying is that you would like to focus on such and such. You'd like to walk away with such and such. Is that correct? And then you can talk more about what that goal means to them. So once they've reached that goal, what will change for you when you've accomplished this goal? How is this important to you now? Why is this important to you now? For what purpose do you want to achieve this? And then you're going to allow the client to lead. Where would you like to start? So there's just a little bit of expanded time that we're spending getting that coaching agreement really clear, because that's going to drive the rest of the session, and it's going to make the rest of the session flow much easier. And when the next part is to explore the current situation without the storytelling. So we're saying what specifically about this challenge or situation is a problem for you right now. And then what have you learned from trying to solve this so far? So instead of saying, what have you tried so far? We're saying, what have you learned from trying to solve it so far? So it's a different answer from them, right? Instead of them giving you a laundry list of things that they've tried to do, now they're going to say, well, I learned that, such and such doesn't work, but this may work, right? So they're giving you a different, that question is allowing them to give you a different way that they are approaching it, or it allows them to see it from a different perspective. And then we want to, kind of go into the current reality. So how is it impacting them right now? What's different about this situation from others where you were successful? So what's the specific thing about this one that's kind of hanging them up? We always want to, listen actively and reflect. And then, so challenging any limiting beliefs or assumptions. So what belief do you hold that might be stopping you from moving forward? What is making you think that's true? Encourage them to consider alternative perspectives or solutions. So what would really help you to look at this situation differently? Some ways to generate some awareness for new insights and perspectives. So what new insights have you gained about this situation? You can do that halfway through the conversation. What new insights have you gained already about this situation? What else might be going on if they're not moving forward? Challenging limiting beliefs to encourage self-exploration. So what might be another explanation or perspective on this issue? So if you see somebody that is stuck in a certain way of thinking, that's a good question. What might be another explanation? Or maybe they're defensive a little bit and they're kind of trying to justify things. You can say, what might be another explanation or perspective on this issue? Or what might be something else that might be impacting this situation? And then challenging and encouraging, so pushing them to go beyond their comfort zone. What's one step you could take that feels a bit outside your comfort zone? What's going to be different this time? And I love that question, because if you have somebody that's tried things, once, twice, 3 times before and nothing has changed, you need to help them see that. So what's going to be different about it this time? What can you do differently this time to get a different outcome? Provide support and encouragement to build the client's confidence. So how can I support you as you take on this new challenge? And then action planning. So just, again, this is jointly done, right? You're collaborating to develop action steps. What specific actions will you commit to before our next session? What is the next or some others that you can take? Ensure that they're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So always use SMART goals as much as possible. When do you want to have that completed by? How will you measure your progress on these actions? And then support their growth. You want to help them to reach their goals and overcome any obstacles. So what obstacles do you think could get in the way of you accomplishing your action plan or this item? How can you plan to overcome them? And then support them to achieve results by helping them to build in accountability. Who or what would support you in accomplishing this? This allows them to bring in somebody else or themselves by asking it this way versus saying, how will you hold yourself accountable? Or who can hold you accountable? You say who or what would support you in accomplishing this. So it could be either themselves, something they come up with, or maybe somebody else. Or you could just say what would support you in accomplishing this. Leave out the who, it's the same thing. They might come up with somebody or something for themselves. And then closing the session, you want to summarize the key points. Now I put this in here, but a good practice for PCC level and above, I kept this like this because for ACC level, but really for PCC and above, we can ask the clients to tell us, we're coming to the end of our session. At the beginning, you wanted to have such and such, you wanted to walk away with such and such. Can you, kind of reflect back to me the action plans, and the timeline that you came up with? And let them reflect it back to you. Or, you can do this as well, just recap it for them. And then you want to partner with them to close the session. So how much progress have you made towards what you wanted to accomplish? What else would you like to explore about that outcome before we close? Do you feel like we've been successful? What are your biggest takeaway? What does it mean to you knowing X, Y, and Z? Again, depending on what was brought up in the session, and then ask for feedback. What feedback do you have about today's session, and what could we potentially improve on for next time? And then the next question here, which look, I can write it on there. I forgot. Would be how would you like to close the session? I think that's a good question to ask. And that most likely at this point, if you've done everything else, they're going to say, oh, I think I'm good. But this is the partnering with them to close it. You're asking them, what, is there, basically you're saying, is there anything else? But you're saying, how would you like to close the session today? And you can ask that any number of ways, but that's how I would say it. So that is the updated model. And let's see. Let's take our break now, and then when we come back, we'll listen to the recording that we have for today. And then we're going to go through the first 3 core competencies as they relate to that recording. And then we're also going to talk about level 1, and we'll do the renewal process and the level 1 application process. And because this is our mentoring session, so we're going to talk more about the specifics with ICF.
Okay.
Okay, so
the list that you were just sharing on your screen, we're gonna have access to that on the portal, on the UpCoach. I don't know, is portal even a right word for it? But
yeah,
I'm calling it portal.
yeah, the portal's fine. You mean the framework?
Yes.
Yes, I'm gonna upload it. I'll upload it while we're on break.
Okay. I uploaded some stuff, but not everything. So
Yeah,
putting together a file on it.
that's fine. Yeah, I'll upload this right now.
All right, thanks.
So we're on break
All right.
till 2:30.
Yeah, we're gonna break till 2:30.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. So I uploaded that to the drive, so you should see that there. And then we are going to watch a video. Hopefully this time it just works.
I'll say a
Um, yes, please.
prayer.
All right, let's see. Um, whoop. Can you hear it? No?
No,
Would have been too easy. Um, actually, um, like share computer audio. Oh, I think maybe it's because I have my headset on all the time. Let's see if that worked. No? Can you hear it? No, I don't understand. All right. I don't understand. Let's try it again.
Doing right in this moment?
In this moment, I am nervous and excited. How are you doing?
Okay, you can hear it now?
I would echo the exact same sentiments.
Okay.
So we have about 28 or so minutes that we can use. Anything you need before we do some valuable work?
Nope, I'm ready.
Okay. And so, what have you brought today that you're ready for?
So I'm doing this course and it's bringing up things. And one of the topics was rescuing. So it was like they're talking about how we like to, like, I guess for me, like I like to be rescued. And I didn't realize this until I heard this. So it's
Jessica, how are you doing right in this moment?
Sorry.
in this moment, I am nervous and excited. How are you doing?
I would echo the exact same sentiments. So we have about 28 or so minutes that we can use.
Started over.
Anything you
Yeah,
need
sorry.
before we do some valuable work?
Nope, I'm ready.
I hit the wrong button.
Okay. And so, what have you brought today that you're ready for?
So I'm doing this course and it's bringing up things. And one of the topics was rescuing. So it was like they're talking about how we like to, like, I guess for me, like I like to be rescued. And I didn't realize this until I heard this. So it's things like buying the lottery. Like I'm like waiting, like hoping the lottery will rescue me and like financially, or like if I like a good example was like kickboxing. I really wanted to do kickboxing, but I wouldn't spend the money myself. So I was just kind of like hoping and praying my boyfriend would offer to pay for it, which would be rescuing me. So I had to work through that and like that if I want it, I can pay for it myself. But the challenge or my struggle that I want to talk about is like, I, how do I don't want to be rescued. I don't want to be rescued or want to need to be rescued anymore. I just want to rescue myself and just feel confident that I can take care of myself and I don't need other people to take care of me for me.
Well, thank you for sharing that with me today. I can tell it seems to be quite personal for you. And as you were saying, the word rescue has come up a lot. And so I'm curious, what does rescue mean to you?
I'd say just like other people like taking care of me, like me, like expecting others to do things for me versus me do them for myself, or even like not taking full self responsibility.
And so as you mentioned that this is what you're bringing today, if I heard correctly, you don't want to be rescued. Did I capture that accurately?
Perfect.
So what do you think would really be a sense of success in moving in that area?
I would say just a sense of success would be like feeling more confident in doing things for myself and not needing, like not having that thought. So I'm aware of the thought now, which is good, but like now, like what do I do with it? How do I like not have that thought, but like what do I do with it once I have that thought?
And as you share this with me, what are you noticing right now?
A lot of double negatives. I mean, I'm noticing that like since this has come up, I have taken action on like I borrowed the money for kickboxing so then I could still do it, but I have full intention to pay it back versus just like hoping that my boyfriend would pay for it for me where I don't have to pay for it at all. Um, Yeah, I just think it's bigger than that and it's deeper than that. And I don't know yet where that is or how that is.
So what do you think, if there is any possible connection with recognizing that there's something bigger and deeper and with this confidence that you're seeking?
I'm noticing like anxiety and nauseousness in my body. So that's why I feel like it's deeper. Yeah, like the tightness in the chest and the nauseousness and um so the way my body's responding is like you're not healed yet.
What does that laughter mean with respect to you're not healed yet?
Oh, I know, but I know you. Um, you always call me out for laughing. Um, good call. What does the laughter mean? I guess just like brushing myself off. Like I like the like not confident in like the you're not healed yet part. Like discomfort.
Is there anything else?
Mm. So the laughter kind of like takes away the anxiety and the nauseousness. So it's like a band-aid. Like if I just like laugh it off, then it's like I'm not actually dealing with the problem. I'm just like, haha, and then move on with life. See, I do it again.
How does confidence play into that laughter?
The anxiety showing back up again. Like that I'm not as confident as I want to be in like especially in the area of just like wanting to rescue myself. Like I'm not confident that like I can rescue myself. Did I say that correctly? Yeah. I'm not confident that I can rescue myself. Which is sad because I want to. Like, why can't I?
So you've just asked yourself, why can't I? And I recognize that there was an earlier desire to not rescue yourself, to not to want to rescue yourself, and then this confidence. And so what would really help you right now?
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Mm-hmm. Well, several things have come up. There was the question you asked yourself, why can't I? There's some sadness, confidence, not to want to rescue yourself. So what would really help you now as we continue forward?
Maybe the sadness, just like digging into that, because that's what's showing up the most, I feel like. Or that's the comfortable thing to do because I'm good with sitting with my sadness. So maybe not as I say that out loud. Okay, the confidence thing is making me nauseous. Just like the not confident in in myself enough to be able to take care of myself. And I think that that's extra deep because I have a new baby, and if I can't take care of myself, how am I supposed to take care of him? Like the best fully. Like obviously I could take care of his like basic needs, but like to be the best mommy, I need to be the best me, like my best self. Ooh, and that brings me to like a memory of my cousins. My cousins used to stand in front of the mirror and like look at them like they were always like skinny, and they'd like look at their stomach and be like, ew, and just like body shame themselves. And then my little cousin was like 2 years old, like modeling that. And that's not the same kind of confidence I'm talking about right now for me, but like I want my son to be able to feel confident in himself enough to take care of himself and feel confident enough with money, not how I currently feel. Yeah, that's bringing up emotions. I did it again. I laughed.
You're allowed to laugh.
Yes, thank you. Then you call me out and then we dig deeper into it, which I appreciate.
Well, do you want to explore this laughter, or are you in a spot where we can possibly identify something that would be meaningful for you to leave with today?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's identify something more, or not that the laughter is not meaningful. The laughter is meaningful, but let's
Fair point.
identify something else.
Well, a lot of things have been uncovered, and so what do you think you're learning about yourself right now?
I'm definitely more inspired now that I have a baby to like kind of like get my stuff together, and like I've always wanted to be my best self, and I didn't really know that to what extent that was as I'm learning. Oh my goodness. I'm feeling nauseous. I mean, don't worry, but I'm just expressing my thoughts and feelings. It's interesting what's showing up in my body as I talk about it. Like I always like I've done so much work on myself that I thought I was confident, but it's just on so many different levels. So I'm just noticing like this new level of confidence that I get to work on. Which is great and hard at the same time.
So we're about at the halfway point, and I can see that confidence is making another visit. So, and that was an earlier desire. And so when you think about confidence when we started and right now, what are you noticing?
I think about confidence and right now, what am I noticing? Just the next layer of confidence that I want to work on, I guess.
That wasn't convincing.
You're right. It wasn't. The I guess part is just like it's hard. Like it's like I mean I love it and it's hard at the same time. So it's just like yeah. Well, what is that next layer of confidence? What is it? it's really financial. It's just like financially being like having that confidence with money. And I think, hold on, I'm thinking. I mean, you're holding on anyway, so thank you. um, I think what it actually is like not letting others affect me, like not letting the outside world affect me, which money is a huge piece of that because there's money beliefs left and right from people everywhere. Um, but like, okay, I might get sidetracked, so bring me back if I'm getting sidetracked by sharing this. So the other day, I was nervous to drive my baby alone because it was the first time, and I was
So
really.
Jessica,
I'm already doing it. Okay.
if you're acknowledging you might get sidetracked, that tends to be a good guess that you're going to be sidetracked.
Okay. So yeah, so external, like letting external things affect me, affect my confidence.
Is that what you want to put some attention on in our time?
Yeah.
I can sense some hesitation. What are you noticing?
Sadness. Like I know that the outside world is not in control of me, but and this actually goes, it links to the rescuing thing. Like if I just take control and self-responsibility, then like I can have my own beliefs about money and rescue myself or not let like comments that my boyfriend says or whatever like affect me.
I hear a lot of emotion for you, Jessica. What do you really need right now?
A hug. What do I need right now? I think just to breathe. What do I do in those moments of being affected? others and not like taking full self-responsibility.
What's your hunch?
What do you mean?
Well, you're asking yourself, what do I do in those moments of being affected by others and not taking responsibility? So any hunches or guesses of what that might be?
See, when you ask the question, it's a good question. What are some guesses? Breathing. Like bring myself back to the moment and remind myself that like I'm in control.
What comes up for you when you think about reminding yourself that you're in control?
My next thought was like putting post-it notes or something, because sometimes in the moment I don't think about that.
What do post-it notes do for you?
Kind of like in my face, like reminders.
Like me when I ask about laughter?
Yeah, exactly.
So we got about 7 minutes together. What would be really helpful for those next 7 minutes?
Mm. I'm thinking. I'm feeling better about like the idea of like the post-it notes and just like the in your face, well, in my face, reminders that like I'm in control. Yeah, I'm feeling a lot better. I feel like we can start wrapping up a little bit here.
Okay. Would it help you to take a moment to summarize what the session's been like for you?
Yeah, a roller coaster. um, I mean, you're really good at bringing me back and staying focused, which I appreciate, because I'm really good at going off track. So like all the different things that showed up was just like I didn't realize until the session that just like the rescuing is connected to confidence. Which makes sense. And then I also didn't realize like the attachment to, like I did but didn't, like how it's affecting my son and how like important it is that I work on this now so it doesn't really affect him. It's also really weird to say son. I haven't processed that I have it as my own child yet. Different session.
You sure do have a son.
um, yeah. And then just like also self-responsibility. That was a good awareness for me. I think confidence and self-responsibility are like my two big takeaways. And also you calling me out on laughing. Like I appreciate it. Like I know, and I appreciate that I was in the moment enough to not stop myself from laughing, knowing that you were going to call me out. Because when you called me out, I was able to go even deeper on like, why did I laugh? And just like that discomfort. So I appreciate that a lot.
You'll get my bill.
Yeah, I know. I look forward to it. Happily,
So,
I will rescue myself and pay that bill.
so there's been the realization of the confidence and the rescuing and the attachment to your son. What does all this mean for you moving forward?
I think it's just time to take action. Which just is like, I mean, are those small steps of just reminding myself that I'm in control and for me to take my own self-responsibility. I think that's my next big moving forward step.
And what do you imagine that next step looking like?
Well, talking to my boyfriend about this session, and because then he can just keep me accountable and make sure that I write the steps on, or the post-it notes, reminders, because it's very easy to get sidetracked with a baby. So yeah, just talking to him, which I'll naturally do, and then sharing with him that I want to create these little like post-it note reminders.
Who or what else might be able to support you, if anyone or anything?
Post-it notes would be my what? That's really it, just my boyfriend and myself, because I'm taking self-responsibility. Haha, look at that.
Haha, look at that.
Yeah,
So in our
that feels
last,
good.
sorry?
I said, yeah, that feels good to take self-responsibility and do it myself.
And so in our last few moments, if you'd like to, I invite you to consider, what would you like to acknowledge yourself for from what's occurred in this session?
I think a lot of what just showed up in my body, like the awareness of what was showing up, and like everything from like the anxiety to the nauseousness to the laughter, like discomfort. Yeah. And giving myself the space to just like feel my feels. So thank you. Thank you for giving me that space too.
And thank you for having the courage and the confidence to feel your feels.
See, I'm already a step closer to this confidence thing. Thank you.
Of course. So anything else you'd like to say or do, or go on Amazon and buy some Post-it notes, or is now a good time to come back to our live studio audience?
Now's a good time to come back to our live studio audience. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Now, let me stop this before it starts to replay again. Okay. So this one was a little different. And I wanted to show you this one, which passed, by the way, with ICF. So it is a passing recording. And I wanted to show you that, excuse me, not everything has to be real pat, and perfect in a coaching session, right? This was a little messy, but there was important things that got done in that session, right? So I'm just going to go through my notes. And just to open it up for you guys as well. So right from the beginning, he's asking what she wants to focus in on in the 29 minutes that they have. So he uses that time frame. And then she talks about the rescue piece, right? Well, we have to inquire about their language that they use and the meaning for them. Like, rescue to us can mean something very different than rescue to the client. And so by asking, what does rescue mean to you? Then the coach now has a much better understanding. And in this case, it was mostly focused around the money piece, like being rescued financially. And so that's much different if somebody feels like rescue to them means, maybe bringing them up when they feel down, or, act physically getting them out of situations. So it's important that we explore the client's language so that we understand it in our sessions. And then his measurement question, or his outcome question, is what would be a sense of success? Again, you can ask that outcome question however you want, with whatever language it's going to resonate with your client. And then he checks the here and now by saying, what are you noticing right now? And he asks, what's the connection? So these are deep questions, right? These are things that are making the client think. They're not surface level. They're not just going through, a model, boom, 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 in order. He's really helping her to explore, and to the point where she gets upset, right? Or she starts to get emotional, because things are starting to bubble up for her from these questions and from her answers. And then, you can tell that they've worked together before, the laughter thing. So, and I don't know if you noticed it, but when she has that, it's a nervous laugh, right? She laughs and you almost want to say that, that's a nervous laugh, right? But of course we don't. Instead he says, what does the laughter mean? So even though he's come across this in previous sessions, he wants to know right now, what does that particular laugh mean for her as it pertains to this session? And then he gives her lots of silence. He gives her lots of space. Like, even to the point where she starts filling it. There's almost a point where I felt like she was uncomfortable with the silence, right?
I thought
She
the
tried-
video wasn't playing.
Yeah, no, that you can't see them. It's just a green screen. So you can't see them. But you can almost, hear it, right? But he gives her a ton of silence, and I can feel that the uncomfortableness coming from her. And he doesn't let her off the hook. Right? He just stays in that silence, and he's comfortable giving her that silence. And that's where we want to be. We want to be in that, where we're able to give that space for the client. And then she does answer something, and he says, well, okay, is there anything else that's coming up? So he didn't just take that first answer that she gave. He asked, is there anything else? And then she mentioned something about confidence. So he says, well, how does confidence play into that laughter? So he wants her to clarify it a little bit more, right? Gives her more silence to help clarify that. And then he asks, what would really help you now? She's not real sure. And sometimes that's going to be the case. And then there's that kind of the question that she says, well, why can't I do that? That's what I'm feeling like. Why can't I do that? Now you notice that he didn't do much talking throughout that whole conversation. He asked very few questions. They were just very specific and they were, very connected to what she was saying. And then they get down to a point where he says, do you want to explore that laughter? Or do you want to identify? Yada, yada. Because she brings up about exploring laughter again. And then he asks, what do you think you learned about yourself? It's important for us to make sure that we're asking questions that the client can keep track of their own thoughts, feelings, growth, or non-growth, if that's the case. But, what do you think you're learning about yourself? Or what have you learned about yourself? And again, he checks in with her often. What are you noticing right now? And then he calls her out. I sense some hesitation. Right? And then again, asking her, what is she noticing? And then would it help to take a moment and summarize what we've covered today? He wants her to do the summary. Right. And a client could come back and say, well, I think it would be better if you did it, or it would be, I would, I could write it down if you gave it back to me or whatever. And that's fine. But you've given them the opportunity, which she does. And then so she mentioned, some steps, she repeated it back. And then he said, well, what would you imagine the next step would look like? Just to see if there's anything else there. There may not be, and that's fine too. But she kind of came up with those steps herself. You never heard him say, what step can you take, when she was mentioning the two things at first, right? The post-it notes enough. He never asked that question. She brought it up, but it's still our responsibility as the coach to ask the question about action items. So in this case, it was, what would you imagine the next step, if any, would look like? And remember, I said this, I think, in the first class, is that we are responsible for bringing certain things to the coaching session. And even if the client doesn't create the opportunity for us to do it, we have to create that opportunity. And so that's kind of this case was because she came up with her own action items, he could have just kept going. There wasn't a need for him to ask that question, right? About next steps. But it did two things. It satisfied his competency of client growth, action steps, just doing an exploration. But of course it helped her because she's expanding her thinking then beyond the first two things that she thought of. So keep that in mind. And then again at the end, so he had said, earlier, what do you think about you're learning about yourself? And then at the end, he says, what would you like to acknowledge? So he's checked in with her twice about her bringing up what she's done or what she's acknowledged or the progress that
Yeah,
she's.
acknowledge yourself for, I think he said,
Yeah.
which is really powerful to get her on a good, I guess, end note.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then he did the, partnering to close the session as well. So in this case, there was no, again, kind of clear cut A, B, C, D, through the session, but the client got a lot out of it, and he did fulfill his his coaching, competencies. He fulfilled those. And the client walked away with, I think, a powerful outcome. Now, for me, I wouldn't necessarily suggest that you always do things that are like, always have sessions that are, I'm just going to use the word messy, because then what happens is you forget over time to make sure that you're doing all the things right that you're supposed to do in a coaching session. But you have to follow the client as well. So it's really not up to us. It's up to the client, and making sure that we fulfill our competency and our role in that session. Then as long as you do that and the client walks away with, something powerful, then we're successful in our sessions. You have any questions about that one in particular?
Not really necessarily a question, but I did feel
Feedback.
like the client that I was telling you about that talks for an hour and a half, like even when he like when she said, I'm gonna get sidetracked, bring me back, and he like cut her
Hold
off,
on.
and I was like, oh yes, this is what I'm gonna
Right.
have to
He didn't let her, he didn't,
continue.
yeah, he didn't let her go, right? He was like, well, if you've already, you're already saying that it's not going to be relevant, basically.
Yeah.
And so he brings that to her attention. Of course, she's back on track now.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that's like I finally got like a good example of it, right? Like right there. And I was like, perfect. This is perfect. I mean, I wrote it down, I put stars and a whole little box around it because I felt like listening to this is exactly how, I mean, yeah, she has a baby and all that stuff, but it's pretty much how it is with the client that I'm speaking about because she's postpartum. And then sometimes I wonder, like, even listening to this session, like she's so messy and so all over the place. Sometimes it's like, when do you know to like refer her out to like a therapist to kind of get more and deeper, right? Which is what I think I spoke about last session, right? Like, how do we know when to refer out? Because it can get tricky. Like, I feel like it is a tricky situation, but I like the fact that he also was, oh, we have this amount of time. Okay, well, now we have 7 minutes. Oh, you heard my bell. Like, that's, it's something that I took note of so then I can also try to kind of keep the person also too on track and myself, because if not, it's the same thing. She started her a story about her cousin, and it's like, okay, it's nothing to do with what's going on.
Yeah, and it's really that people like to tell stories.
Mhm.
And so it's easy for clients to start telling stories. And even when they think it's relevant, and a lot of times it is relevant, but it's not, we don't need to hear it. Like, they can tell themselves that later, or they can, make notes of that later. But we don't want them to, and I won't use the word waste, fill up. We don't want them to fill up the time with those stories. We want the time to be spent on getting awarenesses, pushing forward towards the outcomes that they're looking for. And so the only way to do that is to keep on track. And that's what you have to tell yourself too, is that I'm not interrupting I'm not being rude to the client. I'm pulling the client back on track towards their outcome that they've identified. And that's really the gist of it, is just understanding that that's what we're doing. All right, we're going to go over, we actually don't have too much time though. We're just going to go over, I'll share my screen. The minimum skill requirements. Okay, so the first one basically is, demonstrates ethical practice. So this is basically that we're showing integrity and honesty. We're sensitive to the client's identity, environment, values, and beliefs. We abide by the code of ethics. We use appropriate language and respect. We maintain the distinction between coaching, consulting, psychotherapy, and other support professions, and we refer out. So these aren't directly assessed with the ICF except on the exam. And in our last group session, we'll go over, have examples for the exam. We'll go over that stuff for you. The second one embodies a coaching mindset, acknowledges that the clients are responsible for their own choices, engages in ongoing learning and development as a coach, develops an ongoing reflective practice to enhance one's coaching, remains aware of and open to the influence of context and culture on self and others, uses awareness of self and one's intuition to benefit clients, develops and maintains the ability to regulate one's emotions, mentally and emotionally prepares for the sessions, and seeks help from outside resources when necessary. Again, not directly assessed in a session, in a recording. But is on the written exam. Okay, so establishes and maintains agreements. So the competencies are explains what coaching is and is not, and describes the process to the client and relevant stakeholders. Of course, that's done before you would ever coach anybody. Reaches agreement about what is and is not appropriate in the relationship, what is and is not being offered, and the responsibilities of the client and relevant stakeholders. So this you're doing verbally, and then it winds up in the contract. Anything that's, might be specific to clients or stakeholders, you want to make sure that those are spelled out in the contracts. Reaches agreement about the guidelines and specific parameters of the coaching relationship, such as logistics, fees, scheduling, duration, termination, confidentiality, and inclusion of others. Partners with the client and relevant stakeholders to establish an overall coaching plan and goals. And this, I think I've mentioned this, but this is something that you want to do with somebody like in an onboarding coaching session, is you talk about what are their main goals that they want to reach over the time frame that you're going to be working together. And also kind of making sure that we manage expectations. So if they have a huge goal and you start breaking them down into smaller goals, well, what's realistic for those smaller goals to get done in the time frame that you're working together? So if you're working together for 3 months and they've got a list of 15 things to accomplish, manage that expectation. I'm feeling like 15 might be too much for this 3 months. Let's prioritize them and maybe focus in on the first 5. And then if we get those 5 done, then we can add a couple more, whatever. Like you need to work that through in that onboarding call and really get that specific. And so I'm glad that they added this into the competencies, because in the old competencies, it felt like that would be wrong to map out a coaching plan for the whole time that you're working together, an overarching plan. But they're like, yeah, as long as it's you co-creating it, the client's co-creating it with you, and you manage the expectations, then that's fine. And then partners to make sure that you're compatible. That's important. Identify or reconfirm what they want to accomplish in the session. This is your coaching agreement. Partners with the client to define what the client believes they need to address or resolve to achieve what they want to accomplish. And partners with them to define or reconfirm measures of success. Partners with the client to manage the time and focus of the session. And that you saw Matthew doing that with the time when he said, okay, we have 7 minutes left. And what do you want to focus on that 7 minutes? That's helping the client and he both are managing the time. You continue coaching in the direction of the client's desired outcome unless the client indicates otherwise, and partner with the client to end the coaching relationship in a way that honors the experience. That's typically like if you're gonna, if you've at the end of your 3 months, 6 months, whatever you're working with somebody, you might say, excuse me, what were the things that really stood out that you got out of our coaching relationship? What were the highlights of it? Something like that. What are you going to really take and apply moving forward? Things that'll help them pull out those things that will stick with them, but then also, you know, what might be something that you'd want to focus in on that maybe we were not able to in our time period, you know, going forward. So just kind of things to help them move forward that honors what you've done, the work you've done together, but also maybe things that maybe you weren't able to get to. Okay, so the key skills evaluated from this one are basically the clarity and depth in creating an agreement for the session. The coach's ability to partner and the depth of partnering with the client to the creation of agreement, measures of success, and issues to be addressed, and the ability to attend to that agenda throughout the session. So basically, for these three things, first two mainly, topic, outcome, measurement, why it's important, and where do they want to start. You do those 5 things and you will always have a strong agreement. Now, it might take you asking more than one question though, right? Sometimes, in fact, I think he asked more than one question in today's example, but you might ask, what's the focus for today? And they might come up with several things and you'll have to say, okay, so which one of these is the one that seems most important or stands out to you the most to focus in on today? So you might have to ask 2 or 3 questions to get that specific topic or a specific outcome or a specific measurement. So it's not, you know, it's not about how many questions you ask. It's about until the client gets to the, you know, the answer that makes sense for the session. So, specifically, they want to make sure that you reach an agreement on what the client wants to accomplish, that you identify the desired outcome, that you attend to that agenda, and that you show curiosity about the client, how it relates to what they want to accomplish. And that's that. Why is this important to you right now? Or what's the most important thing to address right now? That's you showing curiosity about the client and how they relate to what they want to accomplish. If you choose the topic, you don't have you don't coach around that topic, you don't have an agreement, you know, an outcome, then you would fail that particular competency. Okay, we're just going to stop there. We'll do the next 3 on our next call, next mentoring. Questions about that? All right. So for Thursday, you're going to read chapter 3, lesson 3. And we will have another demo and then we will start, you guys will start coaching next week. Questions about that?
We'll be coaching next week, what, Tuesday?
Tuesday and Thursday.
Tuesday and Thursday, okay. And
Yeah,
we'll be coaching, we're gonna be coaching one another, I guess, what, one on each day, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll put a schedule together. And then we're also going to have guests come in that you'll coach as well
Okay.
for the rest of the class. So, but next week you'll be coaching each other. And I'll tell you who's doing what on Thursday.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Thank you. I hope you got a lot out of this one. I liked,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, listen, I love listening to the demos and then kind of talking about them afterwards. And then also looking at those mind shifts. I like that too. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day and Wednesday, and I'll see you back here Thursday.
Yeah, see you Thursday. Thank you so much.
All right. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. Mama, you want to eat?